Hello, I'm Mike Hine, Commissioner of the New York State Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance. As we all know, COVID-19 has taken a tremendous toll on New Yorkers. Sadly, we've experienced both an unprecedented public health crisis and a devastating economic crisis too. This reality has left many people struggling with mounting bills and limited resources, with some unable to pay their rent and wondering where to turn for help. Thankfully, New York State has enacted a comprehensive eviction moratorium to protect those in need, but it is temporary. So now there's an over $2 billion emergency rental assistance program that was created in this year's state budget to help New Yorkers pay overdue rent, stabilize their housing situation, and ensure that financial recovery is available for everyone. This emergency rental assistance program, known as ERAP, provides real hope for a bright future by alleviating the burden of past due rent and reducing the associated fear, stress, and trauma for eligible tenants. While available for many, ERAP will prioritize those with the lowest incomes, as well as veterans, victims of domestic violence, the unemployed, and other vulnerable populations, including those communities disproportionately disadvantaged by COVID-19. In addition to back rent, tenants in this program will also be eligible for help with utility bills and potentially up to 3 months of rent going forward. To eliminate barriers and ensure the greatest program access, an online application will be available in multiple languages with application assistance for anyone who may need it. Applying for help has also been made easier, with limited documentation required, as well as the ability to track a submitted application online anytime, day or night. For those without online access, trusted community partners will also be available to help locally, in addition to a centralized call center with expanded hours for added convenience. Simply put, the New York State Emergency Rental Assistance Program can make all the difference in the world for a tenant who's suffering economically because of this terrible global pandemic. And so as we work together to ensure a brighter future for all New Yorkers, we thank you in advance for helping positively change people's lives and for your assistance in making this critical program a success. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Welcome to the information session on the New York State Emergency Rental Assistance Program, otherwise known as ERAP, as administered by the Office of Temporary and Disability Assistance, OTDA. My name is Rick Umholtz. I am the Director for the Bureau of Housing and Support Services. Co-presenting with me today is Linda Camoin, who is the Assistant Director for the Bureau and provides oversight to an array of programs designed to combat homelessness throughout New York. Today's session will cover allocations, eligibility, priorities, and information on application processing. We ask that you use the question and answer function in the WebEx to register your comments. At the end of our presentation, we will address as many as we can. OTDA intends to continually update our webpage, which includes a frequently asked questions resource page. I will now turn things over to Linda, who will discuss allocations.
Thank you, Rick. As Rick mentioned, my name is Linda Camoin, and I will be giving an overview of the allocations that were part of the U.S. Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021 and the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. And we'll start today with the U.S. Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. Through this act, $25 billion was allocated for emergency rental assistance across the country. Almost $1.29 billion of that was allocated in total for New York State. 62% of the $1.29 billion was allocated to state government, and 38% of the $1.29 billion was allocated to jurisdictions in New York State with populations of 200,000 or more. The 62% represents $800.6 million, which is allocated to OTDA, $247.3 million was allocated to New York City, and $234.3 million was allocated to 13 different counties and 10 different municipalities. We can see on this slide the breakdown of the various allocations that were made to the counties, and municipalities across New York State through the U.S. Consolidated Appropriation Act of 2020. The American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 also provided an allocation for emergency rental assistance. The legislation provides more than $21.5 billion in emergency rental assistance to be administered by Treasury to help millions of families keep up on their rent and remain in their homes. The second federal allocation was awarded in May of 2021. We can see on this slide the total allocations that were made for emergency rental assistance through the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. These allocations include the second allocation as well as an additional allocation based on Treasury's determination of a high need area. I'll now turn it back to Rick to talk through New York State's Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Rick?
Thank you, Linda. ERAP will provide significant economic relief to help low and moderate income households at risk of experiencing homelessness or housing instability by providing rental arrears, temporary rental assistance, and utility arrears assistance in New York State. As Linda just mentioned, ERAP was established by federal legislation, which is furthered by legislation contained in this year's enacted state budget. Next slide, please. Households approved for ERAP may receive up to 12 months of rental arrear payments for rents accrued on or after March 13th, 2020. Up to 3 months of additional rental assistance if the household spends 30% or more of their gross monthly income to pay for rent, and up to 12 months of electric or gas utility arrears that have been accrued on or after March 13th. Next slide, please. Payments will be made directly to landlords, property owners, and utility companies on behalf of the tenant. Tenants, landlords, property managers, and utility companies will be notified of the amounts paid on their behalf. If a landlord is difficult to locate or does not otherwise provide information needed to complete the application, after initial outreach, funds will be held for 180 days to allow sufficient time to locate the landlord and collect required information, as well as to provide tenant protections and maximize landlord participation. Next slide, please. ERAP eligibility. Residents of New York State are eligible for rental assistance if the household's gross income is at or below 80% of the area median income, otherwise known as AMI, and on or after March 13th, 2020, a member of the household received unemployment benefits or experienced a reduction in income, incurred significant costs, or experienced other financial hardships that's directly or indirectly due to the pandemic COVID-19. And the applicant is obligated to pay rent and has rent arrears or rent that's overdue at their current residence for rent owed on or after March 13th, 2020. Next slide, please. Continuing with eligibility, the household must be experiencing homelessness or housing instability, which can be demonstrated by having rental arrears owed on or after March 13th, 2020. Citizenship status is not an eligibility requirement for ERAP. I would also like to note households eligible for rental arrears may also be eligible for assistance with utility arrears for the same unit. Next slide, please. Households' income eligibility can be determined by two methods: monthly income or annual income. All determinations require supporting documentation, and examples are provided in this slide. Note, self-attestation of income is permitted in certain circumstances where no other documentation is available. Such examples include self-employment. Next slide, please. Income limits differ county by county and by household size. ERAP will be using fiscal year 2021 income limits to determine eligibility. These limits can be located on U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's website, as indicated on the slide. Next slide, please. Income of all adults 18 or older will be counted with the exception of full-time students who are eligible to be claimed as a dependent. Gross income is used to determine eligibility. Counted income includes wages, salaries, tips, unemployment insurance, Social Security benefits, retirement benefits, child support, recurring gifts, and other income. Income should be documented through pay stubs, employer letters, or other forms of documentation. Next slide, please. The following are not counted as income: foster care payments, public assistance benefits, SNAP benefits, HEAP benefits, sporadic gifts, groceries provided by persons not living in the household, earned income tax credits, federal stimulus payments. Next slide, please. Application processing for the first 30 days will prioritize households with incomes at or below 50% AMI that also have a household member who is currently unemployed for at least 90 days, or is a veteran, or is experiencing domestic violence, or is a survivor of human trafficking, or has an eviction case related to their current residence pending in court, or resides in a mobile home, or lives in a community that was disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, or lives in a dwelling owned by a landlord with 20 or fewer units. Next slide, please. Application processing will then prioritize households with income at or below 50% AMI, then households with income at or below 80% AMI that also include a household member who is currently unemployed for at least 90 days, or is a veteran, or is experiencing domestic violence, or is a survivor of human trafficking, or has an eviction case related to their current residence pending in court, or resides in a mobile home, or lives in a community that was disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, or lives in a dwelling of 20 or fewer units. Then households with income at or below 80% AMI. Next slide, please. After the first 30 days, applications for all eligible households will be processed on a first-come, first-served basis, as long as funds continue to remain available under ERAP. Next slide, please. ERAP will require tenants to submit personal identification for all household members. This can be achieved by a photo ID, driver's license, passports, benefits issued card, birth or baptismal certificate, school registration. ERAP will require social security numbers of any household members who have been issued a social security number. ERAP will also require tenants to provide proof of rental amount that can be accomplished through a signed lease, even if it's expired. If in the event there isn't a lease available, proof can be provided through a rent receipt, canceled check, money order. In those situations where there is no documentation available, a landlord can attest to the amount of rent. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, proof of income will be required for ERAP, whether using the monthly determination or annual income for determination. And again, this slide highlights some of the acceptable forms of documentation. As I previously noted, self-attestation of income is permitted in circumstances where no documentation is available, again, such as self-employment. Next slide, please. Tenants will also be required to provide proof of residency and occupancy, a signed lease, rent receipt, utility bill, school records, postal mail with name, insurance bill, driver's license are all acceptable forms of documentation. And for those who are applying for utility arrears for the same unit, a copy of a gas or electric bill will be required. Next slide, please. Tenants will be asked to attest that on or after March 13th, a member of the household received unemployment benefits or experienced a reduction in household income, incurred significant costs, or experienced other financial hardships, whether it be directly or indirectly due to the pandemic. The applicant will need to sign the application form and accompanying certifications agreeing that the information is true and accurate. Next slide, please. Landlord documentation requirements. As part of the ERAP application, landlords must provide a completed tax form, or a W-9, an executed lease, or in the absence of an executed lease, a canceled check, evidence of funds being transferred, or other documentation supporting the last full monthly rent payment. Landlords must also provide documentation of rent due that can be in the form of a ledger or an attestation as part of the application. Banking information is required in order to receive direct deposit payment. And then in order to meet the small landlord priority that I previously mentioned, landlords will be required to attest to owning 20 or fewer units for rent in New York State. Next slide, please. Similar to what was shared under the tenant requirements, the property owner or authorized property management company will be required to sign the application form and associated certifications attesting that the information provided, including the amount of rental arrears owed, is accurate and does not duplicate a payment received from another program. Next slide, please. As a condition of accepting rental arrear payments, the property owner or authorized property management company must agree to the following terms. The ERAP payment satisfies the tenant's full rental obligations for the time period covered by the payment. Waive any late fees on rental arrears covered by the ERAP payment. Not increase the monthly rental amount above the monthly amount due at time of application for assistance for months for which rental assistance is received and for 1 year from receipt of the ERAP payment. Next slide, please. The landlord or property management company must also agree not to evict the household on behalf of whom the ERAP payment is made for reason of expired lease or holdover tenancy for 1 year from receipt of the ERAP payment. An exception to this requirement will be made if the dwelling unit contains 4 or fewer units and the property owner or owner's immediate family intend to occupy the unit for use as a primary residence. Next slide, please. Utility assistance. For households that are determined eligible for ERAP and who also have gas and/or electric utility arrears, there are 3 options to obtain assistance in paying the arrears. A utility arrear payment can be made directly to the utility company through the Home Energy Assistance Program, otherwise known as HEAP. And there's a link in today's slideshow to see additional information on HEAP. There can be forgiveness of the utility arrears by the provider, or a utility arrears payment made directly to the utility company funded through and with ERAP funds. Next slide, please. Households must be eligible for ERAP rental arrears assistance in order to receive utility assistance through the program. New York State residents outside of New York City who do not need assistance for rental arrears and only need help paying for utility costs can apply under the Home Energy Assistance Program, otherwise known as HEAP. Individuals residing in New York City can download an application at the provided link. Next slide, please. Just a few more additional information points that I'd like to share before turning the presentation back to Linda Camoy. Households are not required to repay assistance provided through ERAP. The only instance in which repayment or recoupment would be required is if it was determined that the application submitted was fraudulent. Next slide, please. Rental properties that are available for ERAP assistance include apartment rentals, condos or co-op rentals, rent for a single-family home, or a manufactured home or manufactured home lot rental. Next slide, please. Finally, as Linda mentioned earlier, there are 24 local governments that received emergency rental assistance funding directly from the U.S. Treasury. Some of these areas elected to participate in the New York State Emergency Rental Assistance Program, ERAP, while other areas decided to operate their own program. If residing in an area that is operating their own rental assistance program, tenants and landlords will need to apply to the local rental assistance program. Linda will now share information on how to apply for ERAP. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Rick. Applications for ERAP may be submitted electronically using a computer, tablet, or smartphone. This online application will be available in the coming weeks. Individuals needing help filing an application may contact a local organization designated to provide ERAP application assistance, or call the ERAP helpline to obtain contact information for the organization in their community who can help them complete an ERAP application. Application assistance may be offered from local organizations in each participating county. Staff from the local organizations may assist with understanding eligibility requirements, accessing the online portal, uploading the required documents, ensuring completeness of the application, overall assistance throughout the ERAP application process. Landlords may be able to start the ERAP application, but both the landlord and tenant will need to complete certain parts of the application. A landlord may help tenants complete parts of the application, like how much rent arrears are owed. Tenants should provide certain tenant-specific information, such as income, and must sign the application indicating agreement with certain information included in the application. Personal information contained in the online ERAP application regarding a tenant's income will not be able to be viewed online by the landlord. And personal information contained in the online ERAP application, including a landlord's bank account, tax information, or other personal information, will not be able to be viewed online by the tenant. Once an application for ERAP has been submitted, applicants, whether it be a tenant and/or landlord, will receive notifications. The application will be available in multiple languages. OTDA anticipates certain reporting requirements from the Treasury. OTDA will review, monitor, and analyze ERAP data. We will confirm prioritizations. We will evaluate and address impediments. We will make necessary adjustments to the New York State ERAP accordingly, and monitor available funds. We also report data to the U.S. Treasury as required. So that concludes my piece of the webinar, and I'm going to send it now back to Rick. Rick?
This concludes the presentation. Thank you for taking time to learn more about ERAP. We look forward to the significant impact this program will have on tenants and landlords throughout New York State. It is at this time that we'll respond to as many questions as we can. Note that any questions unanswered will be included in our frequently asked questions document. Thanks.